Hi, welcome back. We are on chapter 20, so we only have 9 chapters left. We are getting close to the end. Chapter 20 Mad Scientist. Halloween's coming up fast. This is the first year I won't be going trick or treating. The town likes to keep the older kids off the street, so there's a dance party at the youth center on Halloween night. In science class, Mr. Ham is already going into the spirit of things. His tie has skeletons on it. Are you going to Halloween party? I ask Momo. She shakes her head. I have to take my little brother trick-or-treating. I ask Raj at lunch if he's going. Sure I am, he says. Halloween is the best night of the whole year. You get to dress up. Please, my grandfather snorts. It's Halloween for you every day. I decide that I want to go, but I don't know what to wear. For the past few Halloweens, Brianna and I have coordinated our costumes. But I don't need a PhD to know that she and I won't be doing the whole buddy costume thing this year. My mom offers to take me to the high school so I can look through the wardrobe closet at the theater. I've got a great hippie costume from my production of Hair, she tells me as I rummage through the racks of clothes. I shake my head. It's not me. For my parents, costumes are no big thing. It's part of their job, like a uniform. But I think what you wear on Halloween is important. It says something about you, who you are, and what you want to be. There's got to be a reason so many girls go around dressed as princesses and witches. I dig through, and when I see it, I know instantly it's perfect. I don't know why I didn't think of it in the first place. On Halloween night, I hole up in my room getting dressed. When I make my grand entrance, my mom and Ben are already sitting on the front porch, big bowls of candy on their laps. They're in costume too. She's dressed as Little Bo Peep, complete with a skirt and a sheep dress crook. Uh, but it's Ben's costume that makes it. He's dressed as a sheep. He's wearing a fluffy white costume and has a sign on his chest that says, I'm not lost. I just hate asking for directions. Bah, Ben says. I laugh, but my grandfather shakes his head like he doesn't understand. Are you supposed to be Einstein? Ben asks me. I'm wearing a white lab coat and crazy bushy white wig. I've got thick glasses and I'm holding a test tube filled with glow in the dark green paint. Just your basic mad scientist, I tell him. My grandfather told me he was too old for Halloween, so he's wearing his usual outfit. Polyester pants, button-up shirt, and a cardigan, black socks, and loafers. I convinced him to wear a neon orange ponytail holder so he would look a little Halloweeny. Don't tell me, my mom teases. You're supposed to be an old man. My grandfather scowls at her. Ha, ha. Ben greets trick-or-treaters while my mom takes us over to the youth center. We wait for Raj outside and check out the costumes. There are a lot of angels and devils. My favorite is 2 kids who have dressed up as Dorothy and the Tin Man, as the Tin Woodman, except they've switched it up. The boy is Dorothy, and the girl is the Tin Woodman. My grandfather asks, Do you think they'll have caramel apples? The flyer said there would be food. Why? I haven't had a caramel apple in years, he says. Raj walks up. He's not wearing any black at all. In fact, he's wearing green pants and a pink polo shirt and has his collar turned up. A white sweater is tied around his shoulders and his belt has whales on it. He's traded his black Doc Martens for brown loafers with no socks. And he's dyed his hair blonde and combed it back. I would hardly recognize him except for his piercings. What are you supposed to be? He sticks his hands in his pocket and slouches. Preppy, he says. I laugh. My grandfather shifts awkwardly. So what do we do now? I think we're supposed to have fun, I say. Fun? What a waste of time, he grumbles. We pay our money and head inside. It's dark and music thumps out of the stereo. Black lights and orange day-glow decorations are everywhere. There are strobe lights and even a fog machine. My grandfather heads straight for the food and we trail after him. No caramel apples. It's a sad state of affairs when you can't get a caramel apple on Halloween. I feel a twinge of unease now that I'm here. I'm not much of a dancer, even though I've taken ballet, tap, and jazz. My parents are big believers that all theater people should know how to dance. It's the whole being on stage thing. I always freeze up or overthink the steps and how I look doing them. It's hard to relax when everyone is watching you. A bouncy pop song comes on. Want to dance? Raj asks. My dancing days are over, my grandfather replies. Not you, Raj clarifies. Ellie. I feel my cheeks heat up. Sure, I whisper. I don't know if it's the music, or the dark, or the safety of the costume, but the nervousness I usually feel when I'm stepping onto the dance floor melts away, and I find myself jumping and twirling next to Raj. The music pounds like a pulse through the floor, and it's so loud you can't think. It feels like the undertow of the ocean, and I'm just swept along everything reduced to senses. The sticky heat of the air, the brush of an elbow, the flash of a strobe light. I'm a jellyfish glowing in the dark sea, bright and brilliant, just waiting to be discovered. When the music stops, my eyes meet Raj's, and we both gasp, grinning at each other. And then I look at for my grandfather. He's slumped in a chair on the side of the room, his head nodding into his chest, fast asleep like an old man. Chapter 21, Candles. When I wake up, rainbow-colored helium balloons are bouncing on my ceiling, and I'm not 11 anymore. I haven't grown overnight or changed in any physical way, but I feel different. Everything feels more. My mom walks in carrying the phone. It's your dad, she says and hands it to me. Happy birthday from Houston, he calls over the line. How's it feel to be the wizened old age of 12? Great, I say. You know what Shakespeare said about growing old? What? When the age is in, the wit is out. Oh, I say. Huh? It's from Much Ado About Nothing, he informs me. He's saying that when you get old, you lose your brains. That's good. Good? Sure. At least I'll have an excuse when I don't get a perfect report card. He laughs. When I open my locker at school, there is a birthday card waiting for me from Brianna. I can't help but remember last year when she decorated my desk with crepe paper and flowers and brought in a whole box of cupcakes. This card seems a little sad. But the day gets better. At lunch, Raj presents me with a pink bow. Hey, he says, happy birthday. How'd you know? I ask. My grandfather taps his chest. I told him, of course. I open the box and grin. It's a burrito from my favorite Mexican place. This is great. Thanks, I tell him. He blushes a little, looks away. When I was a kid, there wasn't this much hoopla around birthdays, my grandfather says from across the table. You won a ticker tape parade? Everything's too much with this generation. You're part of this generation now, Raj says. I've noticed that grown-ups don't seem to get as excited about birthdays as kids do. My mom jokes that she's stopped counting on them, which makes me think, how many candles will you have on your cake this year? I asked my grandfather. What? He asked. For your birthday, because of Team Melvinus, I explained. Will you have 77 candles or like 14? My grandfather blinks and then says, I don't believe in birthdays. My mom is a little surprised when I request French food for my birthday dinner. French? Not Mexican? She asks. French, I say, and my grandfather gives me an approving look. The French restaurant where we go to dinner is small and intimate. The napkins are thick and ironed. The waiter sweeps the crumbs off the table with a fancy little knife. The waiter gives us bowls of sorbet between each course, but the best part of the meal is the end. Instead of a dessert cart, the waiter wheels out a cheese cart. There must be 20 kinds of cheese to choose from. Pasteur would be impressed. Then my mom breaks out the presents from her and my dad. A gift card to a place at the mall that sells hair accessories. A puzzle with a picture of a unicorn, 1,000 pieces, and a cell phone. There's even a cute case, pink with glitter. Finally, I say, thanks. My mom smiles. Use it wisely, she adds. Don't go over your minutes. My grandfather hands me his present. It's a big box wrapped in shiny silver paper and a white bow. I tear the paper away and gasp in delight. A microscope! It's a good one, practically professional, my grandfather says. I stare at the box. It feels like I've been officially ushered into a secret society of scientists. My grandfather points out the features: binocular eyepiece, halogen light, four objective lenses. Of course, I'll teach you how to use it. This is the best present ever. Well, good, he says, a little gruffly. I'm glad you like it. My mom watches this byplay with a funny look. I thought the cell phone would be the best present ever. After dinner, the waiter brings out a cake. There are 13 candles, 12 pink ones, plus a rainbow candle to grow on. The whole restaurant sings happy birthday to me. I lean in and blow out my candles. One refuses to go out, and it takes 3 times before it's finally out. That night, I fall asleep dreaming of candles, hundreds of candles. They burn on, bright and defiant, never going out. That is the end of chapter 21. Chapter 22, Growing Pains. My grandfather walks into the kitchen a few mornings later carrying a bottle of pain pills. He pours a glass of water and pops a handful of pills. Are you okay? I ask him. He's pale with dark circles under his eyes. He doesn't look good. I'm having growing pains, he grits out, pointing to his legs. The T. Melvinus must be regenerating my bones. Does it hurt a lot? I ask. Let's just say I know what it feels like to be tortured on the rack. My dad's back in town for the weekend. He appears at our front door after lunch, wearing worn-out jeans and a black t-shirt and carrying his toolbox. Dad, I shout and fling myself at him. Reporting for duty, he tells me, holding up his toolbox. I hear there's a toilet that needs fixing. My father is handsome. I don't say that just because I'm his daughter. He's the kind of man who women stop and stare when he walks into a room. He's got thick, curly black hair and dark brown eyes. He's usually cast as the rake or the hero in a play. I miss working with my assistant, he winks at me. I brought your hammer. To pay bills when I was little, my dad did carpentry work and odd jobs, hauling me around in the baby carrier. When I started teething, I chewed the wooden handle of one of his hammers. It still has bite marks on it. Where's your mother? He asks. At the high school. They're having trouble with the light board, I tell him. So she said you're cooking dinner. He looks around. You're here by yourself? No, Melvin's in the den. Ah, right, he says. She mentioned something about some long-lost cousin crashing here. Well, let's get that toilet out of the way. We settle down in the bathroom, and my father snakes the toilet and then takes the lid off and tinkers around with the insides. That should do it, he says. You want to do the honors? I flush and the water goes down. You should have been a plumber, I say. He gives me a weary smile. I would have made a whole lot more money, that's for sure. My grandfather walks into the bathroom holding the Catcher in the Rye. He freezes when he sees my father. You must be Melvin, my father says. I'm Ellie's dad, Jeremy. He holds out his hand. My grandfather doesn't reciprocate. Did you wash that hand? He asks. Toilet water is clean, my father says. Then drink it, my grandfather replies. We stand there for a minute, then my grandfather holds his book. You gonna stand around yapping all day? My grandfather asks. I've got homework to finish. My father makes risotto for dinner. We sit outside on our tiny patio. The adults drink red wine. My grandfather and I have soda. Between the crisp air, the good food, and my parents trading gossip about theater friends, feels like I'm watching my favorite television show. Except this time, my grandfather has a guest role as the silent, moody teenager. Or maybe he isn't acting. My father and grandfather have never exactly been buddies. When my parents first got married, my grandfather said some things to my father that involved the words, punk, my daughter. Needless to say, there is no way we can let my dad in on the little secret about Melvin. My grandfather turns to my dad. So I hear you're an actor. How's that working out for you? Pretty good, actually, he says. The tour of my production has been extended for another year. That's wonderful, Jeremy, my mother enthused. Congrats, Dad, I say. My grandfather doesn't look very impressed. He says, lots of money in performing? I'm in the union, my dad says. I've got a lot of great benefit packages. I've got a great benefits package. My grandfather grunts. My dad smiles at him, faintly curious. You remind me of someone, he says. Really? My grandfather says. Who? Just an old guy, one of those grumpy types. Actually, you're distantly related to him. Guess Melvin is a family name. My mom and I share a worried look. Then, without a word, my grandfather gets up and goes inside. My father turns to my mother. Interesting kid, he says. Teenagers, my mom says with a careless roll of her shoulders. I'll clear, I offer and start picking up dishes. My parents beam at me. I stack the plates, and what I see when I go into the kitchen almost makes me drop them. My grandfather is pouring red wine into a plastic cup. What are you doing? I hiss. What does it look like I'm doing? He says, and he drinks from the cup. But, you can't. Why not? He grumbles. It's not like I'm underage, and I need something to dull the pain. My legs are killing me. The wine loosens my grandfather's tongue, and he starts to make even more snarky remarks at the dinner table. To be or not to be 13, that is the question, he says. My parents are deep in conversation and don't seem to notice what's going on. We move inside because it's getting chilly and congregating around the kitchen table. I'm going to the bathroom, my grandfather announces and walks out. My mother shakes her head and turns to my dad. Were you like that as a teenage boy? I'm not sure. A puzzled look crosses my dad's face. Mostly, I remember being embarrassed by my parents all the time. She changes the subject. So, spill. How's the Francus? She makes air quotes with her hands when she says the name. Francus, I know, is the director of Les Miserables. You mean, besides having a French name but actually being from Long Island? I knew it was a fake accent, my mom says. He had a good speech coach somewhere along the line. The toilet flushes. My father adds, also, his ego is bigger than a blimp. The toilet flushes again. Did you fix it? My mom asks him. I fixed it, my father insists. I think of all the pain pills Melvin took earlier. Worry spikes through me. Maybe we should check on him, I suggest. We find my grandfather hunched in front of the toilet throwing up. Oh no, did you have food poisoning? My mother asks when my grandfather turns a gray face to her. My father sniffs and looks furious. Since when does food poisoning smell like red wine? And that is the end of chapter 22. Probably will film 2 or 3 more videos after this. We are getting close to the end here. Thanks for watching.